Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Attack on Productions. Fluff here, back with Jimmy, who's got another deck profile for you. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. I guess on that point, I'll hand it over to Jimmy.
All right, so we are playing Finn. This deck is kind of better than the actual Finn archetype. The Finn archetype is kind of like trash booty garbage. But the leader is insanely good. So if you don't know what he does, when he attacks, he draws a card. When a card is placed under him, you get to awaken early. And then you have the activate main to place a card under him. You're pretty much never going to use this actual awaken in most matchups. But if you do, it's a draw 2, which is, nice. It would have been nice to untap energy in black, but, Backside, every card under him, he gets +5. Auto at the end of the turn, he plays those cards back out on your opponent's battle area with their skills negated for the game. So he essentially just develops skilllesses for your opponent. And then activate main, you draw one card, snatch one card from your opponent's battle area. Then you choose a keyword under it, under this card, and gain it. So this is like a weird situation of the better your opponent's deck is, the better your leader and the rest of your deck is going to fare for the standard Finn archetype. But I try to take it in a different direction where it doesn't require your opponent to play with you. So your opponent doesn't have to play ball for you to be able to play your deck. So snatching stuff like SS4 Thwartings with this and gaining triple attack is insanely good. There's a lot of new U6 stuff that has dual attack, double strike, stuff like that. So being able to snag those and basically make a 20k double striker or a 20k dual attacker is huge. Moving on, we run the Saiyan's skillless package.
Trying to avoid the glare there.
Oh, for sure. Run the Saiyan skillless package, and then we run the Xeno skilllesses. So if you don't know what Saiyan does, you -1, you play 2 skilllesses from your deck, and then that sets up for your future plays. You can +1 to give everything +5k. If you watched the gameplay of this deck, you've seen that I was able to open 3 Saiyan crack 2 of them to put 4 skilllesses out, then +1 on the next one to give them all +5k, which is a huge pressure turn. But that doesn't happen all the time because you do require 3 of these to be in the battle area, or 3 of these to be in your opening hand to do something like that. So in that gameplay, it worked super well, but in most of the time, you're playing a little bit of a slower game. So that's why we also run an additional unison. We run the Pycon. This is normally seen in Xeno Gogeta. So he cannot attack if he has 2 or less markers on him. The +1 is you choose 2 of your skillless battle cards that gain 10k until the end of your opponent's next turn. So you're basically just putting out 20k bodies that are going to persist. Because early game, your opponent might be apt to turn cards sideways at your 10ks. But this guy gives them a little bit of protection. And then you have the -3 of playing a Union Fusion from your drop area or warp, which is relevant because we do run Thwarting the Dark Empire. I'm sorry. It just has to happen if you're playing black. But before we get to that, we'll talk about the Xeno Evolves. So these guys are insanely good. They evolve on top of a energy cost 1 Xeno card. This Vegeta is kind of the weaker one. That's why we only run 3 of the Vegeta skilllesses and 3 of this one, because it's a little bit weaker than the Goku. But when he attacks, you search your deck and add a skillless to your hand. So kind of replaces himself, but it's kind of irrelevant in most cases. And then we run 4 of the Goku. The Goku is where it's at. Same Xeno Evolve. He is a blocker. But when he is played or activates blocker, you get to play a skillless from your drop area or your warp. So if you have multiple Gokus, you can keep using the same skillless Goku to put these 30ks out. If you have a Vegeta in hand, you can play the Goku, play back out a Vegeta skillless, and then have another target. And another relevant thing is that it sends the cards to the warp, and these come in active mode. So that perfectly sets up for, like I said, he's here, Thwarting the Dark Empire. Hopefully his price will go down significantly with Mythic Boosters, so everybody can have fun with this card, because this card is insanely fun to play, not fun to purchase them. I was lucky enough to get mine fairly cheap, and then, pulling them as well. So If you have them, run them. If not, wait for Mythic Booster. Don't break your wallet for this shitty Finn deck. But moving on. Super combos. So we do run a couple of the cards from the actual Finn archetype, and one of those being Skill Hunter Toa. When Skill Hunter Toa is good, she is insane. So she's a counterattack Spirit Boost 1, play the card, doesn't negate the attack, which it would have been nice if it did. If your opponent has a Skillless Battle card in play, she reduces by 1, becomes a 1-drop, 15k, which is pretty nice, but her auto is where it's at. You get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards 4 or less, put it under your leader card, and like I said, you get +5. So if you set this up right, you can counter, snag the card they're hopefully attacking with first, and then put it on your leader and make you a 20k leader, but basically Sensu Bean, and you get a 15k body out of it. You do have to require Unison in play, which most of the time you're just dropping a Seance and cracking it. But in some cases where you're playing the PyCon or making a Scion stick for the +1, she will be super relevant. We do run another 2-drop Toa, Dark Imperial Scientist. This is a promo from a couple sets ago. Overwhelm 2, which is a really odd number. She is a 15k body, which is nice. And then you choose one card in your hand, discard it, draw one card, then choose one of your cards, and it gets +5 for the turn. So huge buffer, and you get to set up your drop area for future plays. But the reason we go so heavy on 2-drop Toas is because we run Dark Sorceress. This is a deflect 20k, which is relevant, and it evolves for 1 on top of a 2-drop Toa. And then when you play her, you draw one card, and then you shuffle up to 4 battle cards from your opponent's drop area into their deck, which is relevant in a lot of matchups. Especially stuff like Cell Surge, if they're loading their drop area with their Ribrians and Monkeys and stuff like that, you can ship them back, be really disruptive. And a 20k deflect for 1 energy in most cases is hugely relevant to win games. Moving on, one other Finn card from the archetype. We run 1 Unison Absorber. I do run another one in the sideboard in case it's a Unison heavy deck, but this card is just super, it's insane when it goes off, but it's super lackluster when you're trying to get it out, because most of the time you are just paying 2 for it, and paying 2 for Unison removal is solid, but lo and behold, I'd rather just try to win the game.
I'm tapping 1 to negate.
Moving on, run 2 of the SR Finns. Again, another lackluster card. I figured this card was going to be insane, but most of the time it's just not all that fantastic. If your leader card is black, which you can run this in any black deck, your opponent chooses one of their battle cards, it's safe, the rest of them go to the warp. So against like super spammy decks, it's really good. Against most boss monster decks, it's not going to do anything because your opponent does get to choose one card to be safe. And most of the time, they're not going to choose the skillless in play to turn on the rest of your skills, but we don't really rely on that. So this could possibly come out. For negates, Absorption Doom, this card is nutty. Counterattack, negate the attack. If your opponent has a skillless battle card in play, your opponent can only attack 2 more times in a turn. If your opponent has 2 battle cards in play, you can drop a card to pay for its cost. So you can usually set it up so that your opponent's going to have 2 battle cards on their first swing before they can combo off. You just drop this, so you can only attack 2 more times. Since it's usually awakened so early, you're staying at like 6 life. So 2 attacks is not going to kill you in like 90% of hedge case decks. 1 Kai, you never know when you're going to need her. 2 Petrification because it's black and Petrification's busted. 2 of these cards, they're probably going to come out. They really don't ever do anything.
No, they don't.
They don't do much. To be completely honest, I've only ever activated this counterattack once, and it was to remove a 1-drop blocker from the Gohan field deck, which you don't really need any help beating that deck anyway. The activate main slash battle is more relevant, but I'd rather just have a Majin Buu human extinction attack, to be completely honest with you.
Put it on the counter and wait.
For finishing packages, this card is just going to be valid to the creator, so don't even worry about this. Valid to the creator is expensive, but it's 1,000 times better than this. Valid to the creator is over on 3, draw 1, warp 1. Tap 3 if you have 4 or more energy, and absorb a Toa, and then play Creator Absorbed on top. Creator Absorbed is busted. It's over on 4 for 1. I feel like that was almost a mistake to put that on this card. Deflect, relevant. And if you play this through Union Absorb, your opponent warps 3 cards from their hand, he gains double strike, and then when you turn him sideways, he becomes an absolute wall. If your opponent does not have a negate against this guy, they are not comboing out. They are taking this damage if they don't negate. If they do combo out, you are a bad player and you should feel bad about yourself. Unless you only have like 4 cards in your warp, like I normally do with this deck, and then they combo out and I feel really bad about it. 1 secret ID because it's secret ID. 1 Champa, it's French, gotta run it. And then 1 Kai because it's the best secret rare for this deck. You can run Pan if you have it, but I prefer Kai, to be completely honest, because it's just a 1-drop 40k in most cases.
And it's in your collection.
And it's in my collection, of course.
Yeah. Yep. All right, well, thanks so much, Jimmy, for going over everything. If there's anything that you'd like to see with the Finn deck, or any suggestions for Jimmy as far as anything that maybe he should do with this variant, having played against it, this variant is a lot of fun. It's very different, and yeah, Finn is just generally garbage. Any last words?
Don't play the actual Finn archetype. It's dookie. If you're struggling against Finn, the best tip I can give you is just combo off all the skill assists they give you, because it's going to shut off their entire deck. And the worst they could do is take your Unison, and if you just don't play a Unison, then the Finn player just sits there and stares at you for 6 turns until you drop, your boss monster on them.
Yep, agreed. Well, and since Bancroft usually does these, I guess I'll sign out the way that he usually does. Read your cards, know your whatevers, and yeah, that's it. Bye.